it's really good to see you both. I feel like I haven't seen either of you in probably a year.
Yeah, I think last time we saw you was at the farmers market last summer.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So anything new in your world?
Oof.
What's
World's
new
a
in our
whole
world?
different place
Yeah.
1 year later.
Yeah.
Maggie's going to a new school this fall.
Yeah.
In Missouri.
Gonna go teach high school
Oh,
instead
awesome.
of 6th grade. A few people have asked me lately if I'm excited, and I am not.
Well, under the present
Yeah,
circumstances.
just
Yeah.
because of the present circumstances.
Exactly.
I said maybe in another universe. I'm excited.
How far away is the school? From
It's a
where you guys live?
20-minute drive. We're really
That's not
close to
bad.
the Missouri state border.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the word is escaping me. A lot of it's a county-wide high school, so all the little towns send their kids to the high school.
Okay.
So I drive through some of the towns where some of the students will be coming from, and then high school is a little more central to the county.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I hope it works out and you guys are able to stay safe out there.
Yeah, I haven't really released a plan yet still, so I'm just kind of waiting to find out what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So something I actually think about a lot, not just in the context of preparing for this interview, is that when I met both of you at TU before you were married, and I talked to David before you had this business, you said, I want to start a farm. And I was like, yeah, like I think about that sometimes too. That would be awesome. When people say things like that, a lot of the times you just in life, maybe we're too cynical, but you don't take people seriously. And you seem serious.
No, I get it.
But what is it like going from that dream, I don't know, 3-4 years ago to making that happen? Because when we've caught up over the years, it's been kind of a gradual process getting it going to get it to where you are.
Yeah, it has been gradual. There were a lot of stops and starts along the way. And I think that's good. I mean, it was nice to ease into it, I guess, a little bit. I became interested in farming at the end of high school, my senior year, just reading books, and decided that I should go work on a farm after the summer after my freshman year of college. And so I did. I went and worked on a vegetable farm in Indiana for about a month, just volunteering. And then the next summer, I did a full summer-long internship at another farm in Little Rock. And then I did some home gardening and stuff like that, and kept just working on various farms and trying to learn and read and, just learn everything I could. So I don't know if there still comes a point at which you just have to pull the trigger and jump in, and you're not going to know everything. And so we definitely got to that point, but it was nice that I had this multi-year time to explore it and learn about it and try it out and see if it really was something that I wanted to do. Because like you said, a lot of people dream about it or romanticize it, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing that, and that it wasn't just some like idealized fantasy that I had, but that it was really something that I thought I could do and enjoy doing.
Yeah. And going into this as a couple, did you guys always know, having your discussions, that like this would be a business, right? Was this something that you were just considering kind of doing at your house, wherever you lived, or was it always?
I think at first it was kind of like that.
I think when we first got married, there was maybe David was still open to the idea of maybe going into the restaurant business, which was kind of a short-lived idea, but he was thinking about opening a bakery, a donut shop, actually. I don't know how much he wants divulged in this interview.
Embarrassing to think about now.
It's not embarrassing. You could have done it. You were making really good donuts, but it was not, being in a restaurant, owning a farm, they're both extremely demanding lifestyles. And it's hard to get away. But before we got married, I assumed that we would be farming. and then it would be a business that we would be selling produce. But I also knew that I would be teaching. And so I think we're still at a stage where we're trying to figure out if I'm going to go full-time on the farm, and if I am going to do that, when I'm going to do that, because it's been really helpful to have off-farm income, and to, just to be able to provide that and do something also that I really enjoy doing. So
I would say for many years, people would ask, Enlows are here. Do you want to
I
grab
can
them
grab
their
it.
order?
What did you do to your phone?
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't noticed that.
I'll go grab their order.
You need to get a new otter box, I guess.
Somebody's picking up produce, so I have to run out and give them their food.
We do, we do pickups on Thursday. For many years in college, people would ask me what I wanted to do, studying English and philosophy, and I'd say I'm interested in sustainable agriculture. And I really didn't know what I meant by that, because I think for a long time it was just like, well, I know I want to do this someday. I don't know how to make a living at it. And I don't know if it's just like, maybe I'd have some other career and eventually we're able to buy land and just like hobby farm, whatever, homestead, like do it on the side. But at some point I became aware of people around the country who were making a good living on a small amount of land, selling produce to farmers markets and restaurants, and became convinced that there was that opportunity, there was that possibility to make a living as a small farm.
And what was going into it, what was the most attractive idea? You mentioned having sort of a theoretical or philosophical interest in sustainable agriculture, but was it more that, or was it the sort of end of the means of, getting food onto people's tables? I'm sure it was a combination of the two, but what was the most attractive idea to you about becoming a farmer?
Yeah, I mean, originally, like you said, it was this I'd been reading Wendell Berry, and it was this very sort of high level ideals, values based, like conviction about humans' relationship to the natural world and the state of industrial agriculture and all this stuff. Like, it's just the very big picture kind of stuff that originally made me interested in it. But I realized at some point along the way, working on farms, that I just actually really enjoyed working with my hands and being outside all the time. I enjoyed the physicality of the work, using my body, and also became very interested in the soil science aspects of farming, and understanding the chemistry and the biology and all that stuff that goes into it, as well as, I mean, honestly, what should I say here? What keeps me engaged in it is what you're saying, is this getting the product to the consumer. So I mean, that's what makes it worth it every time, right? Is going to the market, is doing what we did today, is handing the food to the person, and knowing, seeing what they cook with it. It's just rewarding to grow food for people. It's a satisfying thing.
At the beginning of the pandemic, when the farmers market was shut down, we didn't have any way to get food to people. So we had a lot of crops, and David was injured, and there was no way to connect with people that wanted to eat the food that we were growing. And it was pretty rough couple of months. And we kind of decided on a whim to start seeing if people in town were interested in buying stuff before the Tulsa Farmers Market opened back up, just because it felt pretty urgent from an economic perspective, but also just from a personal health perspective, to make sure that all of the work that we were putting in was
not going to go to waste.
Was meaningful, and that people were being fed. So that's kind of why we started doing this stuff in Grove. It was pretty terrible to have all this food that we didn't have anyone to feed with.
I will say it's been fun meeting people in town. Since we are new to Grove, we've lived here a year. It's nice to just meet people who live in the area, and we've had a lot of people who are really excited about it, really excited to get fresh produce, who buy from us every week. I mean, there's, I don't know, a dozen or so people who are really regular supportive customers who want to buy a lot of stuff every week. So that's cool. And depending on what happens with the market and with COVID and everything, I think it's smart to build up a local base of customers. So
I think the thing that I would say about the Grove community versus what we're doing in Tulsa, I think part of the reason that maybe it's more acute, that sense of responsibility to try and come up with systems that we can use to serve people that may not have the extra wealth to spend on the produce that we have, is that at the market, there are already systems in place for people to buy our produce that may not have wealth because of the SNAP system, which is really great. And there's no equivalent for that right now in this community. And having taught last year, I know that there are a lot of families that live in this area that can't afford to spend money or just don't have the ability to buy the produce. And so I think we're both kind of trying to think about what we can do to make it more accessible to people, trying to figure out systems for that. Yeah, and that feeling, is just more acute since there aren't as many bridges here as there are in Tulsa.
I imagine it just being you two and it being such a small production there that it has to be a certain size before you can just start giving stuff away, which I guess is the goal. And so maybe talk about that for a little. I think that's incredibly interesting that it's literally just you two working there, right?
My mom came up and helped for a few days this spring.
When
I injured my hand.
Did you tell us about your hand injury?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, we did have some help from his mom. She was very helpful.
Yeah,
she's a really hard worker.
It's just the two of us.
Yeah.
Yep. Just from a practical side, what does a day look like? I mean, you get up and what happens?
Well, for us, most of our time gets spent harvesting and packing. I mean, that's just a really big part of what we do.
Especially that it's different right now than it is. It kind of depends what part of the year you're in. So at the beginning of the year, we were spending a lot of time like doing labor that wasn't directly related to the plants themselves, but kind of preparing the beds and adding, turning them over.
Canopies and stuff.
Yeah. And now I spend a lot of time, probably most time, harvesting or sometimes trellising things. I try to avoid weeding by not talking to David about what needs to be weeded. When he was talking about how he really enjoys the physical labor, you can kind of tell in our stamina for like hours spent in the heat without a break, that he just really loves doing what he's doing. Yeah. And I love it also, but I don't have near the stamina that he has for just spending, 7 or 8 hours out in 90-degree heat, just going after a big project. So I've slowed down a little bit in the summer and spent more time taking care of things and preparing orders and making sure that some of the logistics of getting things to market are taken care of. And then he's flipping over some more beds.
Kind of our weekly rhythm is on Monday, we send out an email to our customers in Grove, letting them know what produce we have available for the week. They have until Wednesday to get back to us with their order. So then starting on Wednesday, usually we'll start harvesting stuff, assembling orders, packing bags. Thursdays we do delivery and pickup in the morning and the afternoon. And then Friday we harvest again for Saturday market in Tulsa, get everything ready that afternoon, drive to market, and then kind of have Sunday off before we start doing it again. So really Wednesday through Saturday gets spent harvesting and marketing. And then we kind of have Monday and Tuesday to focus on other projects around the garden. So trellising,
pruning,
weeding, seeding stuff like that. So that's our weekly rhythm at this point.
This may seem so obvious, especially to you guys and other people who are listening, but I think it's so important just to have that 1 degree between me and my food. Like knowing where my produce and my food comes from, that there's one person who picked that out of the ground, put it in some sort of package and handed it to me. Like that really matters.
Yeah.
And I think even with farmers markets and all of that, it's hard or very near impossible to do that all of the time for every meal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what are just some of the benefits that, maybe from the literature or other stuff of supporting farmers and buying your produce this way? Because I know that even if something is organic or something from the supermarket, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has that same level of quality. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's this whole controversy right now about they're letting hydroponic operation get certified organic. So people are coming in and spraying Roundup all over the place and then just putting in like a hydroponic greenhouse and growing their blueberries and calling it, they're able to certify it organic, So there's all these kind of loopholes and stuff when you get into that federal regulation, which I still think it's a fine program, but there's just all these hidden things that you're unaware of if when your supply chains get that long. So yeah, I think there's definitely value to knowing your farmer and being able to talk to them. I don't know, what should I say here? We're not certified organic. We are certified naturally grown.
mm-hmm.
We're working on getting certified naturally grown. Haven't actually gotten the certification back yet, but we've been inspected, it's the same rules for certified organic, but it's a different certification program. So it's peer-to-peer instead of top-down.
Mm-hmm.
So a fellow farmer in the area came to our farm and inspected it instead of somebody from the Department of Agriculture coming to inspect our farm. And so it's a little bit more approachable for a small farm, a really diverse farm. The paperwork for organic is pretty intense. So if you're growing a lot of stuff like a lot of small farms do, then that can be kind of a chore. Am I rambling too?
No, I mean, I think we've talked about too with friends sometimes that being an informed consumer is really important, especially when it comes to food, but really anything that we're buying. And I think that oftentimes we can get a little, I know that I've gotten complacent about just looking for something that has the label that I think connotes ethical practices. And I think it's hard to rely on, for instance, organic meaning something, or especially things like non-GMO, where if you go to the grocery store, there are things that are labeled non-GMO for which a GMO doesn't even exist. Like this thing's never been genetically modified, but it's still being marketed as non-GMO. So I think that producers end up to some extent taking advantage of consumers using some of that labeling and not recognizing the intelligence of the consumer or respecting that. So along with that, we would rather buy for most every product, and it kind of depends on the farmer. And at the farmers market, you can ask the farmer what they're putting on that product and what their practices are. And usually they're pretty happy to engage you about that. But for most of the things that we buy, I would rather buy a local product that's not organic from the farmers market than I would buy an organically certified product at the grocery store. And part of that is because, who was it that said that it's not right to consider something organic that has been shipped in from,
I don't know.
Trying to remember that I read, but
it was Walt Whitman.
I think
totally Walt
right.
Whitman.
Yeah.
It's just thinking about it. And if you think more holistically about what you're buying and what you're supporting, the idea that you're buying a product that came from, like citrus fruit that came from Mexico or garlic that came from China, and especially being aware of some of the controversies in agriculture in those countries where you're buying those things, and how that's being, how people might be being taken advantage of when those products are being grown there. I just think you have to think more carefully, because I can go to Walmart and buy, frozen mangoes from Argentina, and maybe I shouldn't, because, right? Was it mangoes that were?
Yeah, I think so.
Because there's some extra considerations that you have to make beyond just how was this product grown, but also who grew it, and what kind of relationships exist between large organic corporations and the people that actually live in this place. So,
and freshness too. I mean,
yeah.
I think when we talk about the nutrition of produce, freshness plays a pretty big part in that. The way the soil is managed also plays a big part in it, but just the fact of like most of the stuff that you're going to buy at the market has been picked within 24 hours, like that matters to the degree of nutrition that you're going to get from the food. And I wouldn't want to understate that.
Yeah, agreed.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess to me, like, I just get really excited about thinking about regional foodways, and like there are all these like sort of social, political, economic, like rational arguments that you can make to try and get people to want to buy locally. But like, I just think it tastes better. Everybody knows that with a tomato. Like nobody thinks that grocery store tomatoes taste good. And like maybe with other stuff, there's less of a difference, but I get excited about the idea of creating these regional food systems that really showcase the ecology of the area, like what wants to grow here, what unique fruits are native to this region that like you're not going to find at the grocery store, like pawpaws and stuff. There's so many like forgotten flavors and cuisines and stuff. And I just get excited about like farms doing that, saving seeds, adapting seeds to the ecosystem that we are in, like bringing some of these forgotten flavors and specifically local flavors to market for people to appreciate. And I mean, that's like, I just think that's a cool idea. And I get frustrated at how centralized our food system has gotten, where like everything is bred to look the same, taste the same, pretty bland. It needs to be shipped 1,000 miles away. Like, I mean, it's just kind of,
also
McDonald's, right? Like everything tastes the same everywhere. Like I want to celebrate what is unique about this place. And that's what I see our farm doing.
Another thing that plays into that, not just in America, but in any like big consumer culture, is you lose also a sense of seasonality, or the seasons. And that was something that when I was living over in Italy, it became very apparent. I had no conception of that at all. It's like, you cannot get that this time of year. You can only get it in that window. Or no, we won't buy that because it's out of season. And like here, I mean, you can get an apple, an orange any time of year. We don't really think of vegetables as being seasonal, but they are. And so I think that's really important too, is like what's supposed to be grown right now. Because like you said with the soil, if a big farm is producing something commercially year round on this little plot of land, like that soil loses its nutrition, right?
I can.
The seasonality is what I was thinking about too when David was talking about that. And not just as a farmer, but also just as someone who enjoys eating and food. There's a sense in which I appreciate kind of the almost like it's a constraint on decision paralysis, like to be limited in what I can choose from. David and I were joking because we read of a farmer recently who was doing farm to table work, and he said something along the lines of working with local farmers is like working with a blank slate. And we thought that was kind of funny because it's like the opposite of working with a blank slate, because you have only so many choices based off of what they're growing and what's seasonal. And I really appreciate, I mean, I anticipate something season. There's this new experience once you start farming or trying to eat only what's in season, of missing a food and of like looking forward to the time that you know that it's going to be ready and available to be eaten. I think about like, oh, I can't wait for Brussels sprouts to be ready, or when the eggplant starts to ripen, how excited I am about that. And that rhythm and that experience, I don't know, I don't want to be like overly poetic, because I don't want to romanticize the experience. But there is something that's enjoyable and I don't want to say grounding, because that's too silly sounding, but it just, it keeps you in place. Something about just having to deny yourself sometimes the food that you want, and knowing also that it's probably not, like, blueberries in December are not that good. So it's fine to pass over those. I'll wait until June and get them down the street. So, but it is a different experience. And especially too, when I was teaching in Tulsa, like, my students had no idea what the seasonality of anything. And even, if you think about places that are food deserts too, didn't have a concept sometimes for what the whole fruit or vegetable looked like before it was processed and canned. And so I think when David's talking about regional food systems, a big part of it too is just how disconnected we are from where our food comes from, and from what goes into producing that food. And I think that is kind of a counter, where there is a sense of sadness over how pricing food the way we have to price it in order to be fair to ourselves can make it inaccessible to some people. But at the same time, that's how much food costs. If you're going to be fair to the land, and if you're going to be fair to the laborers, then that's what it costs to produce these items. And so it's really saddening that we have broadly consumers that don't realize that there are being a lot of concessions that are made to bring them a really cheap product. And that often that's being taken out on the soil or being taken out on the laborers. And that we might feel those effects later on.
Or unfortunately, because some people have no other option, that it affects your health poorly. So you're spending less, but ultimately, is it really worth the long-term effects that eating stuff with pesticides or have other issues has on your body?
Or totally. Just the poor, we're still getting into the research, but just the lesser nutritional content, which you can't, we just don't know yet. If you were to compare an organic carrot at the grocery store with a conventionally grown carrot, with carrots from the farmers market, how those all compete with one another. But even aside from the possible impacts of like pesticides and fertilizers on human health and environmental health, just the fact that some of those crops might have very little nutritional value because of the way they're being farmed.
Well, and beyond that, people don't eat carrots. A lot of people don't eat fresh produce at all. I saw somebody was tweeting the other day about there was some COVID testing site where if you came and got tested, you got a free voucher for a Big Mac or something. Or there was another sign that Pepsi had sponsored, COVID testing site, drink a Pepsi, whatever. And it's just absurd that there's a lot you could say about COVID, but that there has been so little conversation about what you can do through your eating choices to bolster your immune system and strengthen your health. It's frustrating to no end. The decisions you make about how you eat affect your health and your susceptibility to disease.
And I don't ever want to shame
the
consumer.
No.
I don't think that you were, but I think it's
I'm frustrated with the corporations that take advantage of
I think we've been
people.
told to eat in more convenient ways so that we can, work ourselves to death, eat something super sweet or greasy or salty that is some sort of pleasure rush that we didn't have to invest any time in. It's just, it's a whole system. And along those same lines, I was just looking at some, just some criticism of like hospital meals and the food that people are being fed when they're hospitalized, and how a lot of it is processed and it's not fresh, it's not nutritious, it's not going to help this person's immune system, or just help their overall health. And it is really unfortunate. And so I think we want to think about how we can make food seem less, especially just like fresh produce can seem really intimidating if you're not used to cooking it or using it, and you worry that you're going to spend all this money and it's going to sit in your fridge and rot. And you just pass over it to eat something that's fast. And I think we're aware of that. My mom cooked a lot of vegetables, but there was a point as a child where I was kind of fending for myself and would just make myself nachos and quesadillas every day, And so there was a time, I think at the beginning of our marriage, where I didn't really know how to use the produce that we had. So that's really why I like the fact that we see our customers, mask to mask right now, is the fact that we can say, they can say, how are you using your eggplant? And just, earlier today, I sent like 4 different recipes that I've been using with the eggplant to a couple of people, to make that more accessible, and just to take some of the intimidation out of buying fresh produce. And that's something that we want to provide recipes for people, or just give them ideas about things that they can do, so that it's not so daunting, because a lot of people don't cook, and it's not their fault. It's hard.
I think it's great being in that situation to be able to provide that kind of advice or have that kind of connection with the people you're directly serving. And this next question is sort of related to what we were just talking about, kind of a two-parter, is like, I feel that something the pandemic has done has made people really aware of cooking and what they're putting in their bodies, and hopefully has shown people not to take for granted food and these resources. And then, so to kind of segue out of that, how has the pandemic practically affected your operations? You touched on that earlier, but what has most been impacted, and how has that changed what you're doing? And do you think that'll have long-term effects on you guys, or if we can get over this, that it'll go away fairly quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great year to try to be starting a business. We moved out here a year ago in the middle of the season. So we did the market sporadically last year while we were fixing up the house and doing all this stuff. So this is really our first full year giving it a go. And it's not a great year to be trying to start a business, with everything going on, for sure. And like we said, I mean, it was the pandemic that really provoked us to start pursuing this sales outlet locally and doing the online orders with people in Grove. So that's been the biggest change. We were originally planning to do the farmers market in Tulsa and the farmers market in Bentonville, and that was going to be it, just 2 farmers markets, and then they both shut down. So we started selling to customers in Grove online. So that's been the biggest change. I don't see it going away. We were planning to do that at some point anyway. Just the pandemic forced our hand. But we had talked about, one day it'd be nice to try and sell to our local community. So that's been a thing. Other than that, the market started back up in June. It was supposed to start in April, so 2 months late. But it's been going steady since then. It's not very different. It's in a new location this year from Cherry Street. It's meeting in kind of Whittier. So it's hard to tell how much the pandemic is affecting traffic, because there was already this change. But so far, crowds have been, for the most part, really good. We've been doing good sales. Did city council vote on the mask ordinance?
They approved it last night.
Okay, so originally we wore a mask the whole market.
We've been wearing masks the whole market.
We've been wearing masks the whole market.
It was only required for the first day. It was required the whole time. Then they just moved it to the first hour. But we elected to just wear it the whole time. Kind of trying to read the cards and anticipate what was coming down the pike. It hasn't. I mean, there are many ways in which it hasn't hasn't changed things a lot. There's just
Yeah.
the two of us. So as far as like hygiene or exposure, you know, we're aware of whether or not we've, we're aware that every time we go to market, we're dealing with 100 or 200 or 300 or however many customers. But we maintain the same hygiene standards that we did before.
Normally Maggie handles the money and I'll do the produce, and that keeps it a little safer if just one person is doing that.
I think, I mean, people wash their produce before they eat it. So that makes it nice to know, okay, people are going to handle this appropriately before they consume anything. But yeah, I mean, I think part of it for me especially has just been, and this is another aspect in which Grove is a little bit different, is this idea of a long-term relationship with one particular customer. I mean, you get some of those at the farmers market, some people that come back week after week and you make small talk, but it has been a little bit more intimate in Grove because I see people's homes, you know, when I do deliveries or like meet their kids. There's just even more, I guess a large part for me has just been a sense of gratitude to know, okay, if the farmers market gets shut down again, I know that there are 15 people that will still need food and that live, you know, in a 10-mile radius, and that we can still provide food for. And so there has been a shift in a little bit in just the way that I think about our relationship to our customers. It just feels, I don't really know. I guess you see how nothing is guaranteed. Which you always know as a farmer, that nothing is guaranteed because there could be a hailstorm any day, you know, but it has put that into sharper focus.
Every farmer I've talked to or heard from on a podcast or whatever who's doing stuff like what we're doing has just had, you know, great sales since the pandemic started. Because like you said, people are more aware. People are thinking of like, oh man, meat's, you know, low at the grocery store. Like it just forces you into that.
We need to have local food sources in case something happens.
We need to start a garden. We need to get a small flock of chickens for the backyard. Like, which I think is great. Like, I wish it didn't take a crisis to make people think that way, but like, whatever, that's fine.
The hope is that when we go back, that people will realize these things and try to support initiatives or do things themselves that protect them and their communities farther, you know, because like you said, it is unfortunate that we only realize these things in moments of crisis. So
yeah, it is.
Well, when people tell me that they're starting to garden, or sometimes we'll have a customer that says like, oh, I don't really need anything this week because I'm growing that, I'm glad, you know, I want people to grow their own food. I also think that experience makes people way more understanding, especially buying from local farmers. Things don't always look the way that they do at the grocery store. And I think sometimes people can be a little caught off guard, like, why isn't this tomato a perfect sphere of unblemished, you know, red? And I really like when I can have a customer that's like, oh yeah, I tried growing tomatoes this year and it was terrible, and I don't know how you guys do it. Because in one sense, it's like, it's not hard, you know, you grow the food, but then there are so many things that go into it. It is really hard. And I think just being able to have those exchanges where people are really gracious and understanding and can properly value the food itself, and understand everything that went into producing it, that's really rewarding.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's like the most simple thing in the world, you know? I mean, it's like Michael Bloomberg got into all that trouble for talking down to farmers and saying, I don't know if you saw that clip back in the
I didn't see that one.
Election. Well, there was some clip that they dug up from a couple years ago where he said, like, farming's so easy. You just put a seed in the ground and it rains and the crop comes up, you know?
He was saying farmers are like not intellectual, you know?
That's what he was saying.
Poor farmers, they don't know anything.
And there's a sense in which, like, okay, yeah, it is very simple. And then on the other hand, like, it's the most complex thing in the world because you're working with a natural ecosystem. You're working with life. You're working with all the soil microbiology and like the soil chemistry, and it's just like
Oklahoma weather.
Yeah, I was going to say,
weather.
and then all of the factors that are outside of your control.
Totally,
I mean, the like the characterological impact that it's had, just to, for, as a human being who enjoys being able to control factors in my life, like there's a lot of humility that gets learned from recognizing that most of what happens here is not in my control.
Humility, like humus, like the soil, like human, because
I love it when he goes on this rant.
I'm serious, that's like, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, what's the future of your little farm, and what crops do you guys have in right now if people are interested in coming out to see you at the farmers market?
Yeah. We have a lot of summer stuff right now. So I should explain what that means. As we were saying, people don't necessarily know. We've got a lot of tomatoes and bell peppers and eggplant. Okra. Our squash and our cucumbers have been struggling, so I don't think we're bringing into the market this week. Maybe a few cucumbers.
Probably not this week,
but we've replanted summer squash, and we'll have some more later on. And then we're starting to get ready for the fall. So pretty soon we'll be starting kale and collards and chard and spinach and lettuce, a lot of greens, and then a lot of roots as well. So carrots and beets and radishes and turnips.
Maybe arugula. People have been asking
maybe
us
some
about
arugula. Yeah. So fall will be more like root crops and greens.
Okay.
But that's most of what we grow. We grow like we're trying to keep it simple at this point and focus in on a few things and really get those down. So we've got I don't know 15 or 16 different crops that we grow throughout the year, and it's just your standard stuff like that.
Bigger picture, we've got a few different things, goals that we have. Want to get some animals.
We would like to get some animals.
So
pastured lamb. We'd like to do pastured lamb and pastured eggs, pastured laying hens. Those are kind of our next two big enterprises that I think we'll pursue, and maybe elderberry later on down the road.
An apple orchard.
Yeah, we've talked. We've talked about all kinds of things, but
we're both very not just idealistic, but
ambitious in a good way.
Yeah. I always said that I wasn't ambitious.
I'm just a daydreamer.
I come from a family that has a lot of people in the medical field, and so deciding to become a teacher and a farmer, I was always like, I'm not very ambitious. Yeah, daydreamer is that. I was thinking visionary, but that's not the right word. It's way too corporate.
No, just daydreaming.
We just both really love ideas and things that would be wonderful and fun and exciting to do. But there are a lot of daydreams.
Finding the time and the money to do them all is the challenge.
Yeah. So I kind of end all of these asking people, what is the one thing they've missed most during the pandemic? That it could be a person, it could be a place, a thing, a food item that you love that you haven't had the chance, but something that you've been missing because of this situation.
Well, mine is a little, it's not quite relevant to the farm, but definitely my students. I mean, the last time that I saw my students was in early March before spring break, and that was that's just the last time I'm gonna see most of those kids. And it's just it's a really painful thing for maybe not all teachers, but for a lot of teachers. And especially, sixth graders, they're just little. So little guys, just the idea of not being able to be with them, or even if I see them, like not being able to hug them or just kind of give them that warm affection that so many of them really needed from me as one of the adults in their lives, that's been really hard and was pretty sad. It was one of the hardest parts of the whole shutdown for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have I been missing anything? I feel so, my life hadn't really changed. I'm just like out here doing the same stuff that I was doing.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard for me to even think. I mean, we haven't really been avoiding seeing anybody. We still see
we have been avoiding seeing
people. At first we weren't seeing your family, but now we see them and we see my family. And
that's about all we see.
Yeah, I mean, right. I don't know. Is there anything I'm missing?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's been, well, we could get into a whole other conversation here, but I think it's good for people to have things to do, like meaningful work to be engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think maybe just more, now I'm just kind of rambling, but yeah, you don't miss anything.
Well, David doesn't miss anything. He has his vegetables and
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what I'm worried about is, again, for Maggie, thinking about this fall with the school.
Yeah.
I just want her to be able to go to school.
Yeah.
And I mean, if that's the best thing to do, I want that. What I'm worried about is that she's going to be starting a new job at the school and have to be online. And so, like, for me, that will be the biggest impact of the pandemic is that.
Yeah. Well, I wish you guys both luck on the farm, and Maggie luck this fall. Is it online and in person combined, or are they still?
We don't know. They haven't decided. So we will see.
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
I'll wait till it's okay.
Sorry.
No, this is what the people want to see.
Oh yeah,
They want to see behind the scenes.
Well, we will be on the Root Instagram tomorrow doing our whole harvest routine, packing up the trailer, driving to market, all that hullabaloo.
I'm excited to see that. Well, it's good to see you both and to see that you're doing well. And hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I can come pick up some fresh vegetables. And
totally.
Sounds great.
Would love to see you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see you.
Talk to you guys later.
All right. See you, Mason.
Bye.